Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Husky Hockey Podcast, your number one resource for all things Husky, college hockey related, and really just all around goofiness. And as we struggle through this off season, I don't know about you, but the days have kind of drudged by as this off season has continued. But I still have a job, and we don't know the job status of Mel Pearson still.
Yeah, I think he's maybe no news is good news from his perspective. I'm going to go with that.
I don't understand how there isn't any whispers or there isn't any rumors, or it's just both are under the assumption, I guess, that it's going to continue, but without an actual contract signed. I mean, they've got to make some kind of decision here shortly, I would imagine.
Maybe he'll just coach for free. Just be like, yeah.
Ooh.
Kind of thought that we were going to get a national title for you with all the 17 draft picks we had last year. And so I'll just do the job gratis for the next year.
Maybe it'll be for community service instead of actually for getting a paycheck. So he'll be coaching at the side on the benches with in an orange jumpsuit.
Yeah. Well, let's hope for his sake that's not the case. But we shall see. It's a developing story.
Cow.
We don't know.
Speaking of orange, I'm going way off the rails already in this podcast. So the other day, my wife and I were driving down I-94, and we go past the car dealership. And that car dealership used to be by the one guy. Now I can't remember his name. Not Tom Petters. Who was the other guy that got caught up in all of that?
Denny Hecker?
Denny Hecker,
another white-collar criminal of Minnesota fame.
So we were like looking. So anyway, people listening to this podcast probably are too young to remember both Denny Hecker and Tom Petters and all the white-collar. Like Denny Hecker is out. Like he's doing consulting, business consulting. He's like, who is going to hire him to consult under business relations?
Somebody will, I'm sure.
Maybe Mel Pearson. Who knows? Tom Petters, he's gone for like life.
Yeah, yeah, and I think he's from St. Cloud, Stearns County at least. I mean, he is probably Stearns County's most decorated white collar criminal. They've done like those American Greed type shows that have been specifically on him. Denny Hecker is, I think, more of a regional figure, whereas Petters really hit the national scene with his malfeasance.
Yeah, I mean that's just straight up $3.65 billion Ponzi scheme. Received a 50-year federal sentence. St. Cloud, Minnesota's own Tom Petters. He's in Leavenworth right now.
And probably not getting out anytime soon.
No, 10 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of mail, 1 count conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. I mean, if you're already guilty of 13 counts of both mail and wire,
that's
only
the charge.
1 count of the conspiracy.
That's the charge that he really hates that. He's like, I didn't. That's BS. You should have got me off on that.
They just tacked that one on. That one's unfair.
I only fleeced $3.1 billion. Damn it.
Do you remember the Mask Jim Carrey movie?
Been a while.
Mid-90s.
I remember it.
There's the scene where, he gets caught by the cops and they're digging through his notes or digging through his pants of all the things that he has in his pockets. And obviously it's all cartoonish, and he pulls out all. It's like, oh, how did that get in there? What's that? And there's a big old bazooka. And he's like, oh, I've got a permit for that. So that's kind of what it reminds me with all of these wire mail frauds, conspiracy, money laundering. Yeah, St. Cloud's old. We should have like a St. Cloud, born in St. Cloud so we can teach the youngins about all of the white collar crime that happens. I guess.
Oh yeah. That'll be
So,
that's our
well,
spin-off podcast.
that'll be the next podcast. We have to have
Stearns County Confidential.
That's
That's actually not a half. That's not a half bad idea, actually.
No, I think we get a lot of episodes out of that. And then not only that, but like I could hear like a jail cell slamming, and I think that would
St.
be
Cloud Prison.
that'll be our intro. So whereas Mel Pearson does not have an official job or a contract, a former Husky does.
That's right.
Coming back here into the fold, and our former alternate captain, I believe, his senior year, Clark Kuster, or Clark Kuster. I guess I
think I've heard both.
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Kuster. You go Kuster. I'll go Kuster. How about we'll
there
have
you
them
go.
both.
One of us will be right.
Yeah, we'll have them both covered.
We'll have it both covered. So, I you know what? I jumped into this. I didn't even properly do the intro. I should just have the intro canned, like for all of us. I'm Weldie, sitting with Andrew here, talking all things Tom Petters, Denny Hecker, and Clark Kuster.
A little bit of St.
What
Cloud
do these
State
three have in common?
Yes.
So, yeah. So, Kuster, did a little bit of a stint as the assistant coach for the Norsemen, and now is going to be the in-game video coordinator person
I think
at
that's
Honcho.
right. There also might be like associate head coach title tacked onto that as well. It's what RJ Enga was doing last year, and then he replaced Oliver because Oliver went to the USHL. And so shuffling the deck chairs here. And so this is, he'll be in the press box, or he'll be, up top, not behind the bench. But the earpiece that RJ Enga will be wearing will be connected. They'll be buddies. RJ and Clark will be buddies because they're going to be going back and forth. He's kind of the one that they'll use to, should we review this? We'll get to that, reviews, because the NCAA did some rule changes and touched on the review process as part of that.
We'll get to that later.
So that's the video coordinating part of it, the in-game portion of that's obviously part of that. And just seeing the bird's eye view of the game is a little bit different from watching behind the bench, so he's going to be able to fill that role. Who knows? Once Enga moves on to greener pastures, perhaps Kuster fills the job that Enga is in on the bench. This is obviously the stepping stone for a bigger job at the college level. But as we mentioned, go ahead.
When you say shuffling the deck chairs, Is that a Titanic reference? Are you implying that we're a sinking ship here?
Yeah, maybe musical chairs maybe would have been a better analogy. Gotcha. It's not. Don't be too pessimistic. It's only July. We usually start the pessimism about February or January at the earliest. So let's actually get into the season before we.
I'm actually more pie in the sky than a lot of St. Cloud State fans.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. I guess I'm the pessimistic half of the podcast. But sorry, it was a Freudian slip, if anything.
So the earpiece has been passed then. That's been passed over, and now Kuster's going to be on the receiving end of it. And played for St. Cloud from 2015 over to 2020. I remember his the 2019-2020 season. I believe it was the exhibition game of his first year. He made just a sick move at the blue line, and just a cannon of a shot from the point and a win in. And I was like, this guy is gonna be a stud here for St. Cloud. And then Bob played him for 2 games throughout the rest of the season.
I thought, was that his first year? Because I thought he was the guy. Maybe I'm mixing this up with somebody else, but I thought he was the guy that came in. He had a fair amount of hype, believe he came in with Schultz. And if I'm not mistaken, they may have played juniors together. I don't know. I remember them coming in as they were the same age, and they were both supposed to be pretty impactful. And then Schultz was, and Kuster struggled to find playing time. I thought he was the guy that in September practices in that first year broke his leg, and I thought he was hurt for his first year. I might be confusing him with somebody else. But yeah, as you said, did not get much playing time really at all for the first 2 or 3 years. But then really kind of since, I think him and Larson probably hit it off a little bit more because, Larson took over in 2018 and got some more playing time in his last few years with the team. And as you said, was associate captain or assistant captain, whatever the title is, in his final year. And I liked that kind of how they brought in Oliver a few years ago. We kind of talked about this when the Oliver move to Fargo was announced, and we knew that they were going to have to find a new assistant and probably a new video guy too. Bringing in a guy that's a little younger, Kuster, he can't be over 30 yet, probably his late 20s or so, and closer to age to the majority of the team. Whereas Larson and Enga are 40, 50 in that age range. So having a guy that's a little closer generationally to the players, I think, is a good strategy to gain some chemistry between the coaching staff and the players. So I don't know much about Kuster's coaching style. I obviously haven't been around the Norsemen or any of that, but I like the move to have someone that's fresh, relatively fresh from playing the college game, and a guy that is familiar with playing under Larson as well. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, and if you look at just because of how everything has, shaken up, his last season was 19-20. Here we are in the 22-23 season. So, I mean, you look through the list of his senior roster. Granilla was on that team. Okabe was on that team. A backup goaltender at that time was Jackson Caster. So, I mean, it was. So you've got some familiarity as well. So it's going to be, this supporting staff is really, I think, kind of the unsung heroes when it comes to a coaching staff. Everyone always points to the head coach and whatnot. But I think a lot, you can't undersell what exactly, the staff does. Now it's, Kuster going to make just a massive impact worth 4 or 5 wins throughout the season? Probably not. But it's, a lot of the camaraderie and communication and whatnot. And it feels that, just the limited amount that I know, at least, of Larson, is that he listens to these people and he's not one to kind of take the high horse and say it's my way or the highway. And, so it's going to be an interesting, like I said, alternate captain here for his senior year. Probably, just for his work ethic, for, kind of being on the sidelines for so long and still showing up for practice. If you were to guess how many goals he scored in his SCSU career, where would you land on that?
Well, I cheated because I'm looking at his stat line right now. But I'll play along. Let's say 3.
Let's say less than 3. Yes. 1 goal his senior year.
And I gotta look that up. It was the first game of that 1920 season, which was at Bemidji. And that was the game that I think they were down 4-0 in the third, and they came back to tie them. That was a weird series.
He was the spark plug. What can I say?
Yeah, he was. And he was injured for, the 16-17 season. He didn't play any, as you said, just 2 games in that first 15-16 season. Yeah, 11 games in the combined between the 2 seasons, the 2 number 1 overall seed seasons. So unfortunate with some injuries, but also kind of a log jam as well because the defense was pretty stacked in those years. So
that's the other thing. I mean, you're looking at the defense for those years. I mean, obviously with Schultz, like you said, but you had Ashawn, you had Perbix, you had Meyer, the list goes on. So it was also tough to crack. I mean, there was only one kind of spot that was open at that time, and it was a little bit of a rotating between Ilvanen got some time in there. Lazat kind of came out. John Lazat kind of came out of nowhere, and I think that's the big thing that he, because they went. Now I'm trying to remember were they going to recruit? Who was John Lazat's teammate in high school? That's gonna
Boy, you got me on that one.
And then they saw John Lazat and they were like, "Whoa, we got to get him too." And yeah, it just kind of came up as a walk-on, and then all of a sudden, got kind of a strong role and has had a fairly good minor league career.
Made it to the NHL even. I think for one game for the Wild.
So like you said, that's it's a good hire. St. Cloud State alum. Hopefully, doesn't end up in the St. Cloud record books as Tom Petters does.
That's right.
There behind the bench, but obviously, I don't think that's going to be an issue.
And just double check. 27 years old. He'll be 28 in January. So. Like I said, not too far, and like I said, played with a couple of these players himself, so good connection with the players there.
And he played for Cedar Rapids.
That's right.
Yep, and Jimmy Schultz played for Omaha.
Because I'm wrong on that again.
Well, I mean, I would say you were wrong. It's because first off, you prefaced that really well.
I just knew that they were coming in together, and I was excited for Kuster, and it never really took off up until that last year. But glad to have him back. Maybe he'll have more of an impact as behind the bench that he will on the ice. But
yeah, and you always heard those stories too about in practice that he has the hardest shot on the team, and we never got to see it in any game. So
reminiscent of Brocklehorst.
Brocklehorst. I mean, Brocklehorst had more than one goal. I mean, I will say that.
He did.
Brocklehorst had a lot more playing time.
Yeah, he had a good shot. Just ask Mazako.
Moving along here in other St. Cloud State hockey news, the NHL draft happened. And I don't know, did you watch any of it? I didn't watch any of it.
No.
It's, usually the drafts, for NHL especially, these guys, it's years away before an impact unless you're a top, 1 or 2 pick or whatnot. And that's just how that's just how hockey is when it comes to everything. So I didn't really watch, but I did look at some of the recaps. And as expected, Adam Ingram did go in the draft. However, he slipped a little bit down, I believe, to the 3rd round, which he was projected even a 2nd round, maybe even a late 1st in some projections. But I think some scouts are a little bit wary of the kind of meteoric rise of players. They don't want to get caught too much in the hype, so they don't like to quote unquote reach, which I think led to him slipping, which puts him a lot of draft reviews, whatnot that I saw, put him as a list of maybe one of the steals of the draft that he did drop to the 3rd round. So that's exciting to see and exciting for him. And I'm excited to see what he is going to bring really to the table. And that these scouts saw a lot of promise in him. So therefore, I'm going to see a lot of promise in him.
Yeah, 82nd overall goes to Nashville. Interesting organization for him to hook up with. And yeah, as you said, a late bloomer. So I'm sure the draft projections of this time last year didn't even know who Adam Ingram was at all. And yeah, as you said, a couple of those mock drafts had him as far, late 1st round. I saw a couple in the 3rd and the 2nd round. wasn't too shocked. I thought second round would have been if I were to bet the round he was going to go in, I'd say the second. But NHL draft is a bit of a crapshoot, especially after you get after the first round. So glad to see him taken, obviously, and it's last year we had Pert going in the second round, correct? Yeah, second round to the Wild. So like we've had a couple of first round picks, Cholowski and Ryan Poehling, who just got traded, by the way, to the Penguins.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Disappointing tenure for the Canadians. So hopefully hooking on with the Penguins. A lot of guys have struggled in their careers until they get to Pittsburgh, and then something clicks by playing with some decent players. Maybe that's the recipe for Ryan Poehling to.
Also getting out of Montreal or getting out of Canada kind of helps as well.
Montreal's kind of been a tire fire of a franchise the last year, so maybe that mojo will help him as well. But we're kind of getting spoiled here as St. Cloud State fans, getting all these kind of expecting every year to get maybe not a first round draft pick, but second round, third round draft pick. So if we can be a little disappointed that Ingram only went in the third round, there's several teams in the NCHC that didn't even have a single recruit or current player for that matter drafted. So I'll take 82 round 3 for Adam Ingram. Also Barrett Hall in the 6th round, who I believe we just skated by, just a drive-by mention of Barrett Hall in the last podcast when
swing and a miss on our part.
Well, I mean, he's from the Norsemen, and I guess I didn't when we mentioned that, and he just announced the recruit to St. Cloud in the last month or so, and so we didn't really even have much of a chance to talk more about Leo Gruba, who, according to Mick Hatton, also had he did not get drafted, but there was a possibility that he was going to get drafted too. I guess I didn't realize the draft possibilities of both of those players. Hall ends up getting drafted. Now, he won't come into St. Cloud until 2023, but he's drafted in round 6 by the Kraken of Seattle. So the St. Cloud can now boast a Seattle Kraken draftee in Barrett Hall. Center as well, so and Ingram as well, center coming in. As you mentioned, huge season at Youngstown in the USHL. Clearly, I'd say the biggest incoming freshman for this class. Excited to see Ingram this fall. Excited to see Barrett Hall next fall. Let's hope. And congrats to both on their being drafted.
And I'm excited for these, obviously being 2 centers. I mean, hockey now in this game is one down the middle. What you need incredibly strong centers, and have 2 of them drafted like this is really great to see coming up for the future. Because that, I would say, looking down our lineup as of right now, that's our weakest link. Right, and Granilla, and we're gonna have Kirkshank is I can't imagine we're gonna put him at wing. We're gonna put him back in center. But Salquist, Spalacy. I mean, that's we're going to be pretty thin there. So I'm having these 2 kind of come in over the next 2 years. It's going to be I think we're going to really bolster that center position. So that's awesome to see. Just running down the rest of the NCHC and just the number of picks that they had. Denver. The rich get richer, I guess what we can say. They boasted 5, I believe, picks. And then Minnesota Duluth had 4 draft picks. So obviously their recent success is getting a lot of attention.
Duluth gets the highest drafted NCHC player at 31, Isaac Howard. Did you check out his get-up at the NHL draft?
I did, and
he looked like a 70s porn star, and I was immediately like, boy, I immediately hate this kid. And then I'm like, wait, he actually has some personality. And he's going to the club and he's throwing dollar bills out and he's got that sort of personality, which again is definitely hateable. It's lovable if you root for that team, hateable if you're anybody else. But it's just, I was just more shocked that you just don't see this. I don't know if part of the junior college or the junior hockey experience is making you the blandest human being possible.
Oh yeah,
it's almost part of the training.
I think hockey culture in general. I think it's just that way. It's just they beat it out of you the whole time.
And I think they do it almost intentionally. Like, you're going to get these questions from media people. This is the most, boilerplate way to, we really have to step it up, play harder. We just got to keep skating. And it's blather that you kind of just tune out after a time. This guy is like I said, making it rain and wanting the attention. He was a guy that I saw some mock drafts earlier that he was closer, like top 10 pick. I was kind of surprised that he slipped down to 31, but he has the honor of being the highest picked, or the first picked player from an NCHC program. So looking forward to and it's Duluth getting a forward too. It's this is goaltending and defense Duluth, 2-1 Duluth. It's nice to have some offensive someone to speak of in the forwards for Duluth. So yeah, I've already made note of Isaac Howard, and I'm looking forward to cursing him on this podcast in the future.
Yeah, I didn't know Stanley can draft, get forwards there that are drafted so high. I figured that you wouldn't want to touch that program, but sure enough, Isaac Howard, and like you said, I think he said that he wore that bold suit at the draft and said, "Well, I'm the best looking guy here, so I might as well be the best dressed." I think that's what his line was. So yeah, it's nice to see some swagger and some personality, like you said, from some of these hockey players. So I loved it. Love the suit too. I think it looks sharp. So. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to yelling at him and being not happy with him.
That's right.
Through the next few years. So, rounding out North Dakota, they had 3 picks, and then Colorado College, Omaha both had 1. So it's Miami and Western both left with the bagel.
Yeah, and overall, from a college hockey, NCAA hockey at least perspective, not the best draft in that regard. There's been drafts in past years where double digits NCAA commits went in the first round, 7 this time around. And last year, you had 4 out of the top 5 picks being from Michigan and all that. Michigan got 2 first rounders drafted this time. Minnesota Gophers
back to back.
13 and 14. Gophers, Bob Motzko did a pretty decent job, at least with the draft. He's got 3 first rounders committed, including Logan Cooley at number 3 overall. He's a guy that I think was a Notre Dame commit up until 6 months ago or so. So probably a one and done guy. But he had a lot of hype as well, selected by the Coyotes. So Motzko did a nice job with his recruits, at least from the top end in the first rounders as they go. So that should be fun when they lose in the NCAA tournament again. But and Dylan James, I don't know if you mentioned North Dakota. He was their top draftee at number 40 in round 2. He had a hell of a season in the USHL as well. Expect him to have a big freshman season. It's just going over the names and reminding myself of some of these recruits, at least, certainly from the St. Cloud State perspective and elsewhere in the conference. It gets me, even in the 100-degree weather here in the summertime, it gets me excited for the upcoming season. And so it's always a good time to just kind of see the state of certain programs. And I mean, it's not everything. It's the NHL recruits. Look at Michigan last year. The fact that you can get all the NHL or high-end NHL draftees doesn't guarantee anything. Certainly doesn't guarantee a NCAA title. So it's not everything, but it's a good gauge as far as recruiting goes. And as we said, good to see Ingram and Hall have their name called.
Two quick observations I want to make about the Big Ten. Sam Rinzel, the third Minnesota pick of the third round that went 25th, defenseman to Chicago, is going back to the USHL. So even though he's drafted, he is not going to be playing college hockey. And just a little bit rare, not entirely uncommon. I think there was one a few years ago that happened too, where they get drafted, but they went back to the USHL.
But he will be coming. He will be coming to the Gophers next year, correct?
No, they have him incoming in 2023.
That's what I mean. Like he's still going to be going to the Gophers, just not this year.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And then Quinn Finley, the 78th overall left winger, committed to Wisconsin, is scheduled to be incoming in 2024 because Wisconsin likes to be Wisconsin. So I just think that's
got to get him a little young, and
there's that log piles, blockade of recruits that are committed that can't really fit him in until somebody else has to decommit to get out of Wisconsin.
We don't have room on this 10-win roster for you right now.
Back of the line. We got some rule changes coming up, but first, I think we should take a quick break. I'm not used to the sponsorship stuff, so kicking over the spot to the ad read. I'm sorry, I'm not used to it, but thank you, all of our sponsors for the support and whatnot. So that's wonderful. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll listen to the ad. So.
Yes. We got a new one this week. It's Green Apron, everybody. Today's podcast is brought to you by Green Apron. Green Apron is the world's #1 mail-delivered meal preparation service specifically engineered for cannabis lovers. Green Apron thinks of munchies in a whole new way. It's not so much munchies as it is lunchies. Get it? It's not quite lunch, but not quite munchies either. It's lunchies. So summertime means it's stone fruit season, and Green Apron is here for all your best stone fruit needs. From our righteous Panama red cherries to our mellow tangerine dream nectarines, Green Apron delivers dope droops for every occasion. Each Green Apron lunchie is hand-packed with love by one of our Green Apron buddies and delivered right to your mailbox. Listeners to the Huskies Hockey Podcast are likely fans of Herb Brooks, and so is Green Apron. Our listeners can get 50% off their first order by going to greenapron.wordpress.com/herb. That's greenapron.wordpress.com/herb. Green Apron, because high quality can always be higher. Green Apron.
All right, thanks to everyone at Green Apron for that. So please,
indeed,
please support Green Apron. We appreciate their sponsorship. So. Rule changes that we've got going on for this next year. Quite a few that I am a fan of, others that I'm not really a fan of, that I don't think are really going to solve a lot of things. So what do you want to do? Do you just want to go one by one and go over which ones are you think kind of fit, or I should say just go just one by one, just get our thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these should be pretty quick. I mean, there's not a ton. I mean, length of intermissions can be
we don't do
or shortened.
anything quick.
I know, but we can go point by point if you want. Just in general or as a whole, I was kind of underwhelmed by these. The ones that I wanted them to change, they kept, and things that they changed, I don't really care too much about. So yeah, why don't we just jump in, I guess.
All right. Kind of the big one is a change for reviewable plays, or I guess the transfer.
Kind of.
I guess I get.
Yeah, let's do the reviews first.
Okay.
So there's going to be some. Again, this was a little unclear because it sounds like it's going to go to a coach's challenge system, which is what they were doing in some regard, except now. I'm going to throw it to you. I think you've got this organized better than I do. So go ahead.
Yeah. So reviewable plays such as goalie interference, offsides, high sticking, or anything that leads to a goal will now require a coach's challenge. If the play is not reversed, the challenging team will lose its timeout. Teams can continue to challenge plays without a timeout, but will be assessed a delay of game penalty if they are unsuccessful in the challenge. So you're right that they kind of pseudo did it, but even then, I felt like it was, last year it was still very much a, calling the ice is blah, blah, blah. We're going to, play is under review. That's not going to happen anymore. It's going to be this is the call on the ice. And then if the, Kuster's going to go ahead and earpiece down to Enga, who's going to feed it over to Larson, I would imagine, whether or not to try to challenge a play. So overall, I think it'll eliminate a lot of unnecessary reviews that definitely took too much time. Whether St. Cloud scored or they didn't, or they let in a goal, there were way too many reviews over the past few years where it was clearly a goal, and it's just move on with the play, and they're trying to dissect under everything to try to make sure it's an okay goal when, it didn't need to go to a review in the first place. So overall, I am a fan of this change. So I hope this will streamline everything a little bit better in the future.
Well, here's my question. So it says here, I'm reading the Schlossman article that recaps these, and I trust Schlossman. He says that goaltender interference, offside, and high sticking the puck into the net, these are the ones that require a coach's challenge in order to review. He says previously officials could review these on their own, and they often did.
Yep.
So I'm reading that as officials no longer have the discretion to do that without a coach's challenge, which I agree. I think that's a plus. But then he goes on later and says officials still have discretion to review other aspects of goals, as well as plays where a major penalty is being considered. So you're still giving the refs an opportunity to needlessly review crap. And I don't know, beyond what Schlossman writes there, that sentence that I just quoted, I don't know exactly what all that entails. But it would be better if it was just every review comes from a coach's challenge. We don't give the officials the discretion to do any other reviews, because if you give them the rope, they'll take it. And we're going to still
We got to go baby steps. It's college hockey.
But we're going to be here
steps.
in October, and we're going to be like, why are they sitting here for 15 minutes reviewing this, whatever it is? They'll find something to look at. They love looking at the camera.
Because when you say that, there is one that is missing. That is, shall I say, a method of goal scoring that is distinctively missing from that list.
Kicking in?
And that would be a kicking in motion. And I think if you were to rate, and this is just coming off the top of my head, like what are the most common reviewed goals? I would say goaltender interference. I would say goaltender interference number 1, kicking in number 2.
And maybe like a high sticking, like a high stick deflection.
Even high stick, I think I don't think that happens as much. And maybe offsides, but I would say kicking in happens more than both those two.
Yeah, and we're gonna get
and
that's where almost every
like,
game it's gonna be, was it a kick or not?
Yeah.
And so
and then no one's gonna know. Now I can foresee the confusion that's going to happen. That whereas one, they're going to drop the puck after that play, and the coach is like, well, why didn't you review that? And the ref's going to say, you're supposed to challenge that. And it's like, no, this is under kicking in, which is your discretion to go ahead and look at it. And then so you're going to get this kind of back and forth, and why this? So we're going to have to wait 2 years before that's instituted as well.
Yeah, and I would rather them just get rid of this. We have a challenge, but if you lose that one, then you. And if you review, so it's right now, you get the 2-minute penalty after the second challenge. You burn your timeout if you miss it the first time, but then if you challenge it to get a second play, and that is not overturned, then you're assessed
or
a
if
2-minute
you've already
penalty.
Or if you've already used your timeout.
If you've already used the timeout, I suppose. I think they should just do the 2-minute penalty. If you get it wrong, you get the 2-minute penalty right away. I don't even think you should burn the timeout first. I just think every review should be a coach's review, and if it's right, then it's right. It's overturned. If it's wrong, you get a 2-minute penalty. I think that will limit the amount of reviews to the ones where the coaches are most sure that it's going to be overturned. And we get a better game flow, because right now, if you're just losing a timeout, I don't think that's that's not as much of a disincentive for coaches to say we'll challenge it. So I think just if you have it on the line, you're going to be going on the penalty kill if it's not overturned. I would prefer that, but I would just prefer less reviews. And so that's my sort of ultimate goal, is to review it less, because we don't want to stop the game for a long time and get rid of any sort of momentum in the game. But I guess
Do you think this will lead to less reviews?
I think this will be largely a neutral change. I don't think this is going to change much from what it was last year to this year, because, like I said, there's no greater penalty for doing that. Now, other than if you're going to challenge it twice and lose 2 challenges. I suppose maybe, we're maybe talking a 10% game. I don't think it's going to be it's not like we're implementing the pitch clock in baseball and it's going to shave a half hour off the game. I don't think it's going to be that drastic. I went to a baseball game the other day, and I totally forgot that they instituted all this all those changes. And I'm looking out in the outfield about a clock counting down, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? So, yeah, totally forgot that they instituted. Was that the...
Do I think that this is going to change? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, was that the Rocks? Did you go to a Rocks game?
No. I went to the Twins-White Sox game where they got lambasted like 13-2 or 12-2, something.
But they have. They're not doing a pitch clock in MLB yet. They probably will next year, but they might be. Maybe they have something that's like testing it out or something.
There was a clock counting down all of the time.
There was, yeah.
So I would imagine
it's not being enforced. I know, but
it's just practice.
The minor leagues has been doing it this year, and college has. So like when I went to a college game, they had the clock there, but it didn't seem like they were really enforcing it very much. So anyway, we're getting off topic.
You went to a college baseball game?
Yeah, I went to a couple this year. The University of Arizona is here. They're pretty decent. They made the tournament this year. So
yeah, but like when do they play? Like, would it play March, April?
Their season is February. Their first game was like middle of February. The College World Series ends like the last week in June. It's like a 4-month season. You play 60 games roughly. I love it. I love that part of it. I think college hockey should be much shorter season. Like I like the fact that college baseball is 4-month beginning to the very end. Like if you don't make the College World Series, I feel like you're just if you lose in your conference tournament, it's like a 3.5-month season or a 3-month season close to it. So it's very compact, which I like. So yeah, I went to 4 games.
I'm just thinking of sitting out in Arizona watching a baseball game. Like that just sounds like I need like SPF 3000 on sunscreen.
The first 2 games I went to, it was like 50 degrees. One game it was too cold. But then the last couple games that I went to, one of them was like 99 degrees. So I got both. I got kind of both.
But
extremes.
it's a dry heat.
It is a dry, yeah, and no mosquitoes.
Oh, I suppose. But rattlesnakes. So pick your poison.
I haven't seen one yet. Knock on wood.
Oh, nice. I think this will be a bigger change? Yes. I think it's going to eliminate a lot more of the ticky-tacky, and I think timeouts are very held to a little bit higher of an esteem in a lot of coaches' eyes than like in a lot of fans' eyes. I think they want to hold on to that timeout for as long as possible, which is why, you're down 3-4-0 early. Coaches usually don't use that timeout, right away in the game to try to counter momentum and whatnot. So I do think this is going to be, I think it's a good change. I do think it's going to be an impactful one. And if it's not, I am going to cry. Just flat out fetal position, because, at least the college hockey brass knows that we cannot continue on this route of all these challenges. So
even if I said like 10%, I'll take it. So I'll try to be optimistic on this. As you said, or I think you mentioned, like the checking from behind, those type of reviews, they kind of specifically said we're going to try to limit those, or we don't even have, they're not like forced to eject somebody if they, if they review it. Like the whole, like, if we review a major, we can't review a minor, or if we review a penalty, it can't be a minor, it can only be a major. I think they're changing that. So, I mean, again, if it results in fewer trips by the refs to the putting the headsets on, I'm for it.
Yeah, not all contact to the head and checking from behind penalties will carry an automatic game misconduct or a game disqualification. So officials now have the option of just calling a 5-minute major without ejecting the player.
Right.
Which was stupid to have in the first place.
Yep.
And the fact that they had to kick him out, and obviously this, pretty much lost the game for Tech minutes into the. I mean, let's face it, Tech wasn't going to.
That and the fact that they were playing Duluth, but Duluth in the NCAA tournament. Come on.
Yeah, and especially with your Hobie top 10 out of the game.
Yes,
really early
within like the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that it was in the rule anyway, right away that you don't have that severity impact right there. I mean, yeah, you need that. I know it might be a little subjective, and obviously, any of those calls are very iffy when it comes to it. But I think that definitely was a change that needed to happen. Transfers, transfer portal, and that looks to get updated. And unlimited transferred, but it's a 60-day window that kind of goes from like March to May. So it's kind of interesting that it doesn't start from the end of the season, but it starts.
It says the day of the NCAA selection show, so the end of the season for all but 16 teams,
I suppose. But yeah, unlimited. So yeah.
Who's going to be the first guy to play 4 different colleges?
I hope so. I mean, I'm going to guess his first year will be for Wisconsin. I mean, and then because there are 6 people behind him ready to go chomping at the bit, they're going to go somewhere else. So that person is probably going to go ahead and maybe Michigan State will be the second team. and then switch over to University of New Hampshire, and then end the career at Canisius. That's going to be the path that's going to happen.
And it's going to be a goalie too, I bet.
It's going to be a goalie, and then his at Canisius, he'll
be
win the Atlantic Hockey
Hockey team. Yep.
And
now I'm going to say
2.01 goals against average with a 94 save percentage.
I like that. So he does that his third year. Instead of starting at Wisconsin, he ends at Wisconsin after winning Atlantic Hockey Goalie of the Year. And then he's got like an 877 goals against in Wisconsin in his senior year.
And only played like the first 6 games of the season.
That's right.
and then there's some freshman that took his job.
I like it.
Man, this hypothetical guy has had a rough go of it.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for him.
Well, he won Atlantic Hockey Goalie of the Year one year.
I mean,
that couldn't be that bad.
Exactly. I'm just stay where you're at, buddy. Non-conference games where the game is tied after overtime. God, I can't even get through this. Non-conference games where the game is tied after overtime. The host school's conference policy on shootouts will be followed. Shootouts were previously not allowed in non-conference games.
And I think
it just adds more confusion.
Every conference, I think, has shootouts now. So I think everybody will just play a shootout regardless.
In non-conference games, that means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. Let's hope, again, that they're not factoring in shootouts to any sort of pairwise or RPI considerations. The thing here with Schlossman's review or recap of all the rule changes, the biggest tidbit on this bullet point was overtime protocol will remain the same, which is how I'm reading that is the stupid 0.5 extra RPI for an overtime win for the 3-on-3. That I'm assuming is the same for next year, which we hate. Because it's basically a tie, but instead of it counts as 0.55% of a win in RPI if you win in the 3-on-3, and if you lose, it's 0.45 of a win. So it's essentially a tie. That, as I am reading it, is going to stay the same. Which, I mean, there was coaches went on, several coaches last year went on record saying they hated that as well. Surprised that didn't get more attention as far as we want to see what that is, because I know the American International coach lost 4 or 5 overtime games early and was complaining about it. And I'm not a huge fan of it just because it's confusing for the lay fan to figure out what the impact of a 3-on-3 overtime winner is very negligible. The biggest impact of that, I would think, isn't the RPI as much as it is that it counts in the record as a loss. And that will come up when we talk about like the Wisconsin rule, which we talked about with Duluth last year, is that someone could be under 500 in quotes because their losses are all lumped into one. So the overtime losses and the regular, regulation losses in the record that they use for the official standings, that will all be all those losses are lumped in together. So that, to me, that's more impactful than any sort of fractions of a point in the RPI. And that, I mean, as we saw with Duluth, that ended up not mattering anyway. But disappointed with that. Just I think that they can make.
Yeah, thanks Huskies for ruining that
one. Disappointed they couldn't just clean that up. I feel like it's confusing to me, and I'm sort of a hardcore fan. And you think that there would be less hardcore fans that would be more confused by that, and just make it just more transparent and easy to grasp. And so the fact that they're sort of kicking that can down the road, not a huge fan of that, and not a huge fan of pointless shootouts like that literally mean nothing either.
Yeah. like I would love like I'm gonna make a flow chart, and it'll just be a flow chart so I can keep it straight, and so I can send it to Jim Rich so he can keep it straight of what all of this means. And the thing is, I will start it off probably as a serious flow chart, but it's gonna have to get comical because it's just so many of these asinine rules that are just kind of shoved in there. And you know, I was looking for, and I thought I saw it, and we're gonna have to come back to it in the next episode. But I thought they were, I thought I saw discussions of them changing the weightings as well.
I didn't see that. I was looking for that.
Of overtime, or
if you find
I don't
that
know
out,
if it's of overtime or road loss or road wins in overtime, like RPI weighting a little bit differently. So
if you find that,
I don't know,
send it to me because I was looking specifically for clarification on that.
I'll add it onto my flow chart. You know, maybe instead of like celebrating it as 55% of the win, you can celebrate it as 66% of the wind or whatever it's going to come out.
Let me ask you this. If there was, so we got this current
ties. Oh no, I'm sorry.
That's the moral of my story. Yes, ties. Embrace the tie. But I'll put you this hypothetical. How about we got the system that we have now, which is clear as mud, or it's a 3-on-3 overtime, and if you score, it's 100% of a win, and if you lose, it's 0%. You get all the RPI points. It's as if you won in regulation if it's a 3-on-3 overtime. Which would you prefer?
I would prefer that.
You would,
and I would prefer that
from the clarity
just
standpoint,
for the simplicity of it. Yep.
Yeah. Until the first time that St. Cloud loses in a 3-on-3, and then you're like, ugh, bring it back.
I'm okay. I would be okay with the weighting of it. However, my original complaint of 3-on-3 overtime in general will still be the same.
Yeah,
I don't like 3-on-3 overtime in the first place, and I wish that we'd get rid of it because coaches are sucking all the fun out of it. Yes. They're coaching all the fun out of 3-on-3 hockey. And B, anyone who says it's more hockey than a shootout, I think is just it's more odd man rushes. And now it's just, some teams may not even touch the puck before it's a breakaway and a goal. And it's like, okay, now you don't even have a chance to answer that on another breakaway.
Are they sucking the fun out of it? I think I know the answer to this anyway. But are they sucking the fun out of it because they know there's not a ton on the line in the overtimes? I would say that's not true because the NHL is kind of the same way. NHL is sort of done in the 3-on-3 overtimes. They kind of do the same stuff where they're hanging out in the neutral zone a lot of the time. They've sort of figured that all out. It's not like we're just going to go on and do the 2-on-1 thing back and forth. So I don't even think that I was just spraying to mind. I don't know if that was... I like these hypotheticals, though. Yeah, I don't like 3-on-3 either, but I think I agree with you that I would almost like just doing the full win, full loss, no halvesies, just if you're going to have a win on your record, make it count. I don't know. Maybe. You'd think that if you're going to play enough overtime, it'll kind of come out in the wash. I mean, some team like in the American International, they're gonna lose 7 overtime games and they're going to complain about it, but it'd be interesting to see, or it'd be interesting to see if they weighted it that way, how much of a difference it would make. But that's a different project, or it's a project for a different day, I guess.
Exactly. But in the end, stupid shootouts are dumb, and we're going to have more.
Yes, embrace the tie. That's the moral of the story.
College now for offsides. The skate will not have to be touching. It can be hovering. So all of the airspace on the top of the blue line will be considered onside if your skate is above the line and still on that right side of it. I am a fan of this rule. I think that even those splitting hair differences of offsides and now taking away a goal because it was a quarter of an inch of white space, I don't think it's that big of a deal. now, if it's hovering above, we're going to be able, those are going to, stand as goals. And I like that. And, it's not like we had great picture quality anyway to tell if the skate is on the ice or off the ice, because, parallax angles or any, there's a lot of different, ways you can look at something and whether or not it's on or off. It's just, I think it's just easier to say, yep, I just look at offsides as what's the spirit of the rule. And, if you're, hovering above the blue line, I think it should still count. And I'm happy that they're making this change.
Yeah, I hate offsides reviews. I don't think we should have offside reviews at all. So I'm for this. I would say the only time that I really don't like.
Oh, you want my hot take? I don't think we should have offsides anymore. Boom. Yeah, I said it.
Not sure if I'll go that far, but I like that. I like the hot take. I like that. I would say like an offsides goal shouldn't be overturned.
Picture hockey without offsides.
Didn't it?
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I don't know.
No, you'll just have Spihar hanging out all the time, and it's just suckhole.
There is going to be suckholes.
There you go.
But there,
defend it then.
Yeah, I suppose.
Or don't have the man advantage. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it adds a whole sweet risk reward element. But anyway, I know I'm definitely not going to win that one. So
I hate the offsides reviews where I can see it if the player who was offsides scored the goal. But there was some of the reviews, like a guy is going off on a shift, like he's not even in the play, and he's on the boards, dangling 1 foot over the boards. I think they did that in the NHL a few years ago, where they took a goal off because some guy was off the ice, but was technically a hair in the zone when he was doing it. If you're like offsides and you're the guy that gets the puck and then scores, I would say that you can maybe. That's much more significant than, I mean, you've overturned goals with guys that are offsides that aren't part of the play at all. So the less offsides reviews, the better for me. Thumbs up on this one.
Yep. And with that is now the provision that nullified video review of a potential offside play if a defending team gained possession and control of the puck was removed. So now, if you are offsides, linesman didn't see it, and the play continues on for 2.5 minutes in the opposing zone, and then the goal is scored, they can challenge for offsides and nullify that goal.
So it seems like the last thing we said is going to lessen offsides reviews, and then this adds a couple more.
So this is the monkey's paw here that that you're going to get with,
and this
really
was
all college hockey rule changes.
This one was specifically a North Dakota instituted rule change because it was against Boston University in the NCAAs in one of the years that Fargo, I think, had a regional. And there was a goal with this where it was, I can't remember the exact who scored it or what, but it was scored it, and I think they overturned it because of this, where the other team gained possession during the same play, but then the goal, I think North Dakota scored it, but then they waved it off because BU had touched the puck in the zone, or I can't remember. But so this was all sort of a North Dakota instituted rule, and now they're getting rid of it. And because it was a whole North Dakota thing to begin with, I'm happy on that aspect of it. I just don't like the that we're sort of adding. This is sort of a niche, a rare circumstance. It's not going to come up all that much. But I would have not touched that one, I guess, myself. But you can't win them all, I guess.
Well, however, I believe it was the second goal, maybe, that UMass scored against St. Cloud, or the third goal that was actually went to a review for an offsides, but it upheld because of this provision, because they deemed that the Huskies player had control to get it out of the zone, but they didn't, and they ended up scoring.
Why do I not remember that? I tried my best to black that game out.
Well, that's probably why.
But yeah, I don't remember that.
I mean, it probably wouldn't have changed anything the way everything went that night.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember being a little bit upset about that because, you know, to me it looked like he touched it, had possession of it, and that should have, or that he didn't have possession of it, but they deemed it that he had possession of it, so therefore that offsides was rendered moot, and they were able to score on that play. So that's, I don't know. Like you said, monkey's paw, it's going to be different. You know, we hopefully limit, or more goals can stand, and now more goals can be taken away from this. Hopefully not a lot though. Famous last words. We're gonna get stuck on this one sometime.
Yeah.
Intermissions, like you said, 12 or 15 minutes in length, not 18. Good. 18 is way too long. I would argue 15 minutes is too long, but you gotta have your sponsors, so whatever.
Gotta have your grandpaid.
Yeah, exactly. Hashtag grandpaid, who liked my tweet, by the way. So
Sweet.
Players not allowed on the ice before the start of the pregame process, and non-starters must proceed directly to the bench after intermissions. Whatever. I didn't understand this was an issue, but apparently there was one issue one time. What was it? Western Michigan and North Dakota or whatever. I don't know. There's some story that I didn't really care about. Defensive team high sticks the puck in the defensive zone. The defensive team will not be able to change its players, which is consistent with the hand passes in the defensive zone. Okay, whatever. I think that's not that big of a deal. Cover the puck of the crease is now reviewable by coach's challenge.
That's not officials have their own discretion to review, but it's only a coach's challenge. I think that's how I'm reading it.
Yep, exactly. Which is, you know, how long do they cover it for? I mean, it's just going to spark a whole lot of other debates, which granted, those other debates were there anyway, so I guess it's just more of the same.
Yeah.
But so yeah, those were some of the rule changes and kind of what our thoughts are about that. Any final thoughts on the rule changes? I'll try to remember, or I'll try to get you the what goal it was for UMass. We'll have that probably for the next podcast.
Yeah, like I said, I was annoyed that overtime is going to be the same. I have not liked the overtime format that they've used the last few years, and that's kind of my biggest rule change hill that I'm willing to die on, and the fact that they didn't really address that was frustrating. And we sort of debated, like I don't think the changes to the review process, I don't think they'll be as impactful as you do. I hope that they are, because like I said, I like less reviews, and if that's the case, then I would be for it. There's nothing in here that's egregiously like I'm gonna quit this podcast and stop watching the sport. Obviously,
flip a table.
But that's kind of how you go with rule changes. Most of it is just small incremental stuff. So yeah, a lukewarm thumbs up, I'll sum it up as.
Mm-hmm. All right. By the way, I remembered Jacob Benson went to high school with John Lazat. So they were recruiting Jacob Benson, and they saw John Lazat play, and they were like, "Oh wait." Yeah,
I didn't know that was the. I didn't know that was the story of how they got Lazat there. I thought it was they had already recruited this guy named Blake Lazat, and then they're like, "Oh, you must have a brother," and they're like, "No, we're actually not related at all."
They didn't know that until it was already signed to an NL.
They thought they were getting some like legacy, NLI. Like we got a family connection now, but no, we're not even even distantly related.
Nope. Sorry. So, couple of questions here. What is way too early line predictions? projections. I love the question,
Yeah.
and here's the tough part about that. And I'm sorry, TJ, to kind of say not yet on that one. Is just I just want to know for sure who's coming and who's not. And I think there's still a couple of people don't know exactly who they are or what they're coming. Then I will. The big thing that I am looking at is basically Ingram. Where is he? Is he going to be? Is he going to be? Where is he going to be put in the depth chart in terms of center? And if Spellacy and Salquist, maybe they do have some kind of surprises. Do you move Crookshank over to wing? Again, I don't see that happening. Do you just put him right at third line center, have him go at it and see? But it's, once we know exactly who the people are, I'm more than happy to go through way too early line projections. I just want to make sure I have the right people in place. I don't want to forget anyone and whatnot. Yeah, so that's my take on it. If you've got any more to say about that, Andrew, go ahead.
I'm punting as well. I think like September would be a good, we still want to do it before the season, but
oh yeah, definitely.
But still, it is sort of academic because lines, especially with St. Cloud in the past, it's kind of a blender. There's even during the game they'll mix up lines, so there's not like this is going to be the Ingram with these wingers. This is going to be the line combinations for the entire year. That might last a shift.
Which and I said, and I talked about, Ingram and the forwards and whatnot. I am really interested in these defensive pairings.
Yeah, that's another. Yeah,
and we're really deep there on defense.
That's more.
And I'm really excited to see what these pairings are going to be. And like you said, that's more, or I assume that's what you're going to say, is that it's more stable for defensive.
It's more stable defensively, but even that'll shit. I'm more kind of interested in combinations just within lines. Like, are they going to keep Miettinen and Krannila together? Crookshank, like I said, or like you said, I think he's going to be center. I would be surprised. I think the whole point of them bringing him in was for him to be a center. So I'd be surprised if they shifted him to a wing. But who's he going to play with? Then you got like power play to think of. Like power play units are typically a little bit more cemented.
Yeah.
But again, there's always shuffling parts there as well. So it is, it is a moving target or topic, and an interesting one, and one I haven't quite done enough prep on in July. So let's punt it a month or two.
We don't do prep.
We don't do prep, but I've done like less prep than even usual. So
what was it? Common Man?
he's a no prepper. Yeah, let's marinate on this topic for a little bit. But it is, like I said, a good question, and we want to do it before the season starts. So hold us to that. I would say September is going to be the good time because the guys will be, practice will be starting, so we'll kind of know who's, if someone didn't show up, or we'll know the pool of available players there.
If one of our forwards walks on a cop car,
or maybe they flunked out a summer remedial, math class, and they didn't make the grades. We'll figure that out by the time September rolls around.
Maybe somebody got too big into Xbox and flunked out of college early.
These are all the curveballs, that you
these
just
are all
don't
the
know.
things that have happened in the wonderful history of St. Cloud State.
That's
so
right.
Who knows?
That's right.
So, Dan Jacobson, best pizza you ever had? I'll go ahead and first and foremost, when St. Cloud had Old Chicago, which I miss very, very dearly. They had a pizza double deckeroni, which is 2 layers stacked high of pepperoni, and they had some hot sauce on there, and you add cream cheese to it. And I thought, deep dish pizza, and it was so incredibly good. If you're ever able to get a pepperoni cream cheese combination, do it in a heartbeat. It's magic. It's incredibly good. And
does it come with Tums? like on the side.
I mean, yeah, you might pay for it later. The Tums are an extra charge that you have to go
so
to
they just
Walgreens afterwards.
sprinkle it over like kind of like a Parmesan Tums.
I think I get a couple of looks if I'm crushing pills there at the table to sprinkle onto my pizza. I don't think they'd like that very much. So the St. Cloud Old Chicago closed. I cry at night. But then, one of my sons has an appointment down the cities for his club foot. He's getting treated for that. And we're driving through, and it's like, hey, let's stop for lunch. Let's go to Old Chicago. Boom, they have a double-decker roadie. We ask for cream cheese. They don't carry cream cheese anymore, and it was kind of a bummer. So we substituted it with ricotta, and not the same. So that was it was a little bit sad. But as far as like chain, I would say that's probably my favorite. My wife and I, for our 5-year anniversary, went up to Crosby. We stayed at a little, it's kind of a chain, I would say, or a couple places, but it's Zafferty's Pizza. Is incredibly good. It's wood fire, like really thin, crispy crust, but it was incredibly good when we were up at Crosby. So I would highly recommend that if you're near a Zafferty's, definitely go there. But Dan was talking about in Pequod's in Chicago and a couple places in New York. I haven't actually not really had pizza in non-Minnesota. Actually, I would say. So it's I don't have anything exciting along those lines. Obviously, we've raved quite a bit about House Pizza and Gary's on this podcast previously, but those two kind of stand out to my mind when it comes to pizza.
Yeah, we talking like style or specific restaurant? Well, I'm not sure exactly what the question was, but
you can interpret that question how you want. It's pizza, man. You have it your way. I've had
New York pizza in New York, and it's very good. I like that style of pizza. Was
it your favorite pizza joint in New York?
My favorite pizza joint in New York City. Yeah, you stepped on on the call there, but yes, this place called Sabaro. It's quite good. But I like that style of pizza. I'm not a huge deep dish guy. I typically like thinner crust. Actually, there's a place here that has, I was not familiar with Detroit style pizza. Are you aware of this? I think you'd like it if you're a deep dish guy because it's similar to that, but they must put cheese in the pan because it comes out the crust has cooked cheese on the sides. And again, I'm not wild about deep dish, but that was different and it was quite good. Again, it's pizza. It's hard to be not good pizza.
Jet's Pizza has that.
Oh really? Okay, I never.
Yeah.
I don't think I certainly didn't have that style of pizza if I ever had Jet's. But that was different.
It's one of the styles that they have at Jet's. That Detroit style.
Yeah,
I really like it. Yeah, Jet's I think is really good pizza. So.
Yeah, in general, I like this kind of the hand toss, not crispy thin crust, but New York style, where it's a thin crust but it's foldable. I do like that style of pizza. I'm just thinking I have not had pizza in a while, and I am hungry for pizza now.
Well, there you go. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
So,
I will say though, but for a place in Minnesota, if you're in the Hastings area, go to Spiral Pizza. If they have the thinner crust style, hand tossed that I'm talking about, I'm craving a spy pie right now. So if you're ever in the Hastings area, it's right downtown. It's on Highway 61. Hopefully, I haven't been there in 5 years, but I would assume it's been there since the 60s. So I would assume it's open. But Spiral Pizza in Hastings, that is my Minnesota pizza joint shout out.
Interesting. All right, sounds good. Now, obviously, that thin crust or whatnot, it's got to be cut into squares, right?
That is pie cut, yes, or square cuts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that is square cut. And I used to work at a pizza joint in Minnesota or in Hastings that's not open anymore. That was also it was in that same. It was square cut, hand tossed style. It was not quite as good as Spiral, but
Well, clearly.
I do like that the square Heggy. Like a good Heggies is good. Like those high end frozen pizzas, those can be good. Again, it's pizza. It's hard to screw up.
So if you're on a Heggies or a Lots of Matza debate,
Lots of Matza's
you're a
good, too.
Heggies fan.
Yeah. I would probably take Heggies between the two of them, but Lots of Matza is good as well.
Sure enough. So, and then last question that we got: if you can magically become one side character in any '90s sitcom, which one would you be? That's Whiskey Dave. So thank you for that. And last podcast we divided up into 2 shows. We might divide this up into 2. I don't know.
We're only at
because-
an hour 20. This is like halfway done from the last podcast, basically.
So it's this is a good one. And I posed this question before the pod to Andrew, and he brought up a good point. Like, what do you determine as a side character? Is a side
that's
character
the
somebody
inherent
who had
question
one
here.
guest? Yeah. Is it one guest role? Is it a guest arc? Or is it a main character but had a few, different scenes? A B, always in the B story. Side character can mean many different things. So we're just going to leave it up to you how you want to define it. I have a list of a few that I would like. And I wonder if we've crossed some.
Yeah, we were talking. I know we've got some shows that are gonna cross paths, but yeah, the question is inherent here. Is like, what's a side character? You could make the argument that Kramer is a side character on Seinfeld. The show is called Seinfeld, and Kramer is his neighbor. But I would say that Kramer is. I think there's 4 leads in Seinfeld, and so I would not consider Kramer to be a side character. I would consider him to be a main character. Whereas I would say someone like Tim Watt from Seinfeld, the dentist, played by Bryan Cranston, that I think more fits the spirit of this question. Where that's more.
Gotcha. So Putty for example.
Putty was probably going to be my. Was that your pick as well, or one of your picks?
It wasn't my pick, but my pick for Seinfeld. And then here's the thing. Where do we go from here?
I think it's got to be someone that was in multiple episodes, not just a one-off. So I think there is going to be...
Because a lot of my people that I have were like mainstays on the show, but I would consider them side characters.
Okay,
so for Seinfeld, I have Newman.
Yes, Newman is great. And that
just kind of going up and just being like, "Hello, Jerry." I think I'd be great at it.
Yes, yeah, he is good, and that I think definitely qualifies with what the side character thing is. Even though he's way more, Tim Whatley was probably in 5 or 6 episodes, whereas Newman was in dozens.
Putty was probably in 2, 3. I don't think he was in that big of an arc.
I think he was in more than Tim Whatley. I'd say he's closer to 10. He was in he was in a good amount. I mean, he had the face painter episode with him with the Devils when they go to the hockey game.
That's always the one I think of. Yeah,
the one where he's got the fur coat. He's got the big fur coat. He's got the. There was I think it's season 6. I think is when when Elaine is going out with him. I think he's in 3 or 4 episodes. Oh, the one where he's at the dealership, where he's actually the car salesman instead of the mechanic now. That's a good episode. Putty's in a decent amount, and he's a good. That's a good pick. Putty's.
I didn't know I have IMDb here on this podcast. Seinfeld IMDb going through Patrick Warburton's career.
I'm kind of obsessed. Maybe, sticking on him, we could do Joe Swanson from Family Guy, also voiced by Patrick Warburton. Although that's more 2000s, I guess, not 90s. think it started in the late 90s, but more of a
Yeah.
2000s show. So, but I'm always here for the Warburton.
Sure enough.
Moving on from Seinfeld, I had how about now this one is this side character or not? Because I think he was in every episode. Al Borland from Home Improvement.
Ooh, okay. That I would say that's a side character. Yeah.
But see what I'm saying? Like, he's probably in every episode, but it's different from Seinfeld, where he's definitely not the main. He's not a main character. Like, anyone in the family is probably the main character, or even like. So you got Al or Wilson. Wilson's intriguing. Like, you could see like a spinoff of Wilson, and that would be like a drama. Like, it's this wise man with no face. I don't even think that's like that's kind of like going Better Call Saul versus around. It's kind of like going drama off of a comedy. I think you could do it a whole different attitude to that show. Is like the dark Wilson. I kind of like that idea, but Al
a Wilson or origin story.
Yeah, maybe it's like it's like he was always living in that house, and they just built the Tim Taylor house, but for like decades before that, he was the only house on the block, and then all of a sudden, this new family shows up. And he's like, I gotta teach this. And he takes one look at him, and he's like, this guy is such an idiot. And he finally decides, like, I gotta teach this guy some stuff about life. And he just kind of...
I all of a sudden really want to know his backstory.
There might be something there.
There might be something dark there. I don't know if we want to go there.
Oh, it's very dark. It's very dark. Yes, that's the whole appeal.
I mean, man, when I talked 90s show, I went all comedies, but here you went with the comedy with a dark twist here. Let's go. I don't know if any of my if my guys have a backstory kind of like that.
Well, yeah, what else you got?
Well, a big fan. Obviously, one of my top shows is News Radio.
Yep.
So ironically, my first thought was Patrick Warburton's character was Johnny Johnson, who had about 5 episodes, who was the counterpart to Jimmy James, and kind of took over his empire.
I don't remember him
5.
being. I would have brought him. Yeah,
So,
I think I had not. I have not seen. That's the one with Lovitz, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen hardly any of those episodes.
I
should get into it if I've got Warburton to look forward to.
Which is a shame, because it's some of the funniest, I think, actual episodes are from season 5. It's just that Lovitz is such a bad character. Like, the whole premise of the character was bad, not necessarily that Lovitz was bad in it, but it was just, I didn't think you needed to try to replace Phil, or because it was a big enough ensemble already. You could just reshuffle, and I think you could do a lot with Matthew being the head reporter and Lisa being the on-air talent, but instead trying to kind of shoehorn somebody else in there in the cast. It just didn't work. So, but I mean, there's an episode with the smart drink. That's hilarious. Like I said, the Johnny Johnson arc, that was the 5-episode arc, a 3-parter, then a 2-parter where Jimmy James is convicted of being DB Cooper. So but for News Radio, I picked Joe. I know Joe Gorelli. Joe Rogan's obviously in the news quite a bit for all of his, what he's going on right now with his podcast and everything. But I really like his character on News Radio, and I think that'd be a fun side character to be.
It is good, and because I was thinking about News Radio as well, I would say, and Phil Hartman, I would say Phil Hartman does not qualify as a side character.
I agree.
I could see the argument both ways, but I think that Joe much more fits that definition.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, like, I would say the Dave Foley character is the main character or the protagonist, but Hartman is just too much. I think he's just too big of a character to call a side character. So that's why I wouldn't have put him in that. I don't think he qualified for this one, but it's worth every time we bring up News Radio, It's it's always good stuff.
Couple others that I have. Obviously, we have to have a Wings reference.
Yes.
Lowell. I mean, playing the dumb airplane mechanic. I think would be a blast. So I think I would be him. Obviously, I don't have the skills to be an a small town airport hub regional sandpiper air mechanic. But I think that was good. And I can't remember what was Tony Shalhoub's character's name too.
I can't remember.
But
you're the Wings expert.
I'm the Wings guy. Like I'm gonna figure it out here, and I'm gonna be so mad at myself for not remembering. Kids listening, watch Wings. Wings was great.
Wings was good. Uncle Phil on Fresh Prince.
Ooh,
does that
Uncle
qualify
Phil.
or not?
I think more like Jazzy Jeff would qualify. Which
did they like
Antonio? That's right, Antonio was his name. Okay, I'm sorry.
Did they just do a reboot of the Fresh Prince? I think I read something about that. Have you seen any of that?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, but it's not that I'm like against it. I'd give it a shot. It's just that there's just so much on TV right now that I'm watching.
Well, yeah, that's any show,
especially with Better Call Saul. You know, kind of really getting into it. I'm so happy Rhea Seehorn finally got a Emmy nomination.
There's not a bad one though. Rhea Perlman on Cheers. I mean, that kind of qualifies.
I was thinking Cheers, and I was like, who would I pick from Cheers? And yeah, everybody, Rhea Perlman probably would be a side character.
Again, in one of those seasons, like Al Borland kind of categories where she's in every episode, but still not Sam or Diane / Rebecca. So I think that she would qualify as side character. More of an 80s sitcom, but it did last into the 90s. So I think it counts.
I also so here, if we're let's continue this. Did you ever watch Unhappily Ever After?
No.
All right, Mr. Floppy, which was
never heard of it.
You've never heard of
never even heard
Unhappily Ever After?
Oh, you're saying Mr. Floppy is a character from the show? I vaguely have heard of Unhappily Ever After. I thought you were talking about another sitcom called Mr. Floppy, which I have not heard of. But no, I'm not familiar with the show.
No, Unhappily Ever After was pretty much another version of Married with Children.
Okay.
But the Jeff Pearson played the dad, and he went downstairs, and he would just have a schizophrenic side, and he would talk to Mr. Floppy as the bunny, and it was voiced by Bobcat Goldthwait. So that's the character who I would like to be. But it's like, as the show went on, he, Floppy obviously was like the breakout hit, so he got more and more play. So maybe he's, too big of a main character on that show. But Nikki Cox, Kevin Connolly, in the show. So it was, I don't know. I really liked Unhappily Ever After. I thought it was hilarious.
Any others?
I got two others.
Go ahead.
Are you done? Are you already done? This is 90 show. This is my wheelhouse.
Did you tell? Did I say that I didn't do a ton of show prep? I spent a couple.
Sorry, that's right.
I spent a couple of seconds thinking about it, but I did not. My list was not comprehensive. I just Googled 90 sitcoms to refresh my memory as far as what we got on the of options here. But go ahead with your two. I'll come up with. I'll come up with one.
I suppose you're. That TGIF lineup for me is kind of what got me. So, but I mean, granted, Unhappily Ever After was on the WB. But yeah, I got two shows from the TGIF lineup. Here, Jack from Boy Meets World. which was Sean's brother in the later episodes.
Oh yeah.
I think there's
I watched a fair amount of Boy Meets World, so yeah.
It's a lot of depth also, I think, to his character. Right now, Danielle Fishel, Ryder Strong, and Will Friedle are doing a rewatch of all the episodes. Pod Meets World. And they're on episode 4, and I've been absolutely loving it. It's been really interesting hearing them talking. I'm so excited to have them go through all the episodes, and they have guests on and to talk about. So I'm really, really excited for when they get to seasons 3 and 4 and whatnot, and so on. And then last and probably my number one is Cody from Step by Step, and I'll tell you why. He had the best lines. I thought he was the coolest guy on television, probably at that time, and maybe even looking back, still the coolest. Just lived in the van, just outside, just in his uncle's driveway. I mean, it was just the life. I think, and for the Code Man. So that's my number one. That I would like to be. All these other ones I think are just honorable mentions, except maybe Mr. Floppy. I think Mr. Floppy would be fun. But yeah, Cody, Step by Step, number one with a bullet. So that's who my pick is.
Just scrolling through these, this is like going down nostalgia lane here. Peter Boyle in Everybody Loves Raymond, soft spot for him. That was pretty
I
good.
never got into Everybody Loves Raymond.
I was never really into it either. The pizza place that I mentioned earlier that I worked at, we seemed to play. It was like the shift ended with Everybody Loves Raymond in syndication. We played it on the TV, so I've seen. That's probably the majority of the episodes that I watched were on that TV, like with my manager sweeping the floor. Pretty good entertainment for that context, which isn't that high of praise, but he had some zingers pretty much every episode. So there's some decent Everybody Loves Raymond stuff in there. The Larry Sanders Show, which is another great show, and that's specifically in the 90s. I don't think that bled over into any of the other decades. I'll go with Jeffrey Tambor, Hank Kingsley in that show, even though he might skirt the line from side character to main character, mostly a side character because he was the sidekick on the show, but classic as well. If you ever have a chance, and again, I'm still like, I've never watched The Wire. It's like, it's one of these shows, it's like, you gotta see The Wire. Have you seen The Wire? Oh my god, it's the best show ever. You gotta see it. I realize it's like it's quite the task to sit down and watch 80 hours of entertainment. But if you ever have those 80 hours free, you could do worse than picking the Larry Sanders Show. So I'll give that a shout out as well.
Yeah, that's always on my list. I hear a lot of Larry Sanders and never got into it. Never gave it a chance at the same time.
I will say the first season is the weakest. If you get past the first season, it's definitely, the second season is probably the best. But then it's very good all the way. I think it's 5 or 6 seasons. It's pretty good. Although the first season is kind of, I don't know. I watched that first at some point, and then I didn't go on, and then I picked it up again a couple years later, and then I really enjoyed it from that point on. So.
Gotcha. So, well, that about does her on this episode of the Husky Hockey Podcast. We're getting down to it. Just a few more months here before the puck drops, and I'm getting ready for it. I'm ready for the for a little more news to kind of trickle out, and maybe next time we talk, Pearson will either have a job or, maybe be in Atlantic hockey. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, we'll keep you updated on that one. But yeah, we got 67 days. Probably, well, like 65 whenever this podcast drops. But
Yeah,
we're
60.
because I think it's October 1st, right? So 68, 67, somewhere in there. Something like 60 days plus until the puck drops, which feels
60-ish.
much too soon. But I am getting excited.
Well, until next time, thank you everybody for listening, and thank you also to our sponsor,
Green Apron,
for Green Apron for the sponsorship. So until next time, go Huskies! Woo!